Hello there and welcome to Inquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with today's fountain pen review, this very unusual fountain pen from Majohn, the V1. Now you may well ask what's so unusual about it, and well you may. It's unusual because at first blush, this Moonman Majohn fountain pen isn't a direct copy of any other pen, but not so fast. The boys and girls at Moonman Majohn may not be copying the most prestigious and recognizable fountain pen in the world, but it looks like they've actually not invented this pen out of whole cloth after all. Let's find out right now. So I'm pretty sure I know what this package is. It's a pen from China. Let's find out what pen from China it might be. Well, I've got some, I didn't order an Asvine, but here's an advert for Asvine P20, Asvine V169. I've got one of each of those, so that might mean this is coming from Asvine, but even though I didn't order one, I think they're one and the same company with Majohn Moonman. Let's see what pops out. That's what she said.
They taste so good in my mouth.
That's what she said.
All right.
And here it is. This is in fact a Majohn, and it's a very unusual one in that it's not copying anything that I know of. It probably does copy something, but it's the V1 and it looks like a test tube. It has this tiny little clip we've seen before, and this one is either a vacuum filler or it is a Japanese eyedropper. Now don't send me mail. Japanese eyedropper doesn't mean where it was made. It means a type of fountain pen filling system, and this opens from the end. And then there's a long test tube thing that doesn't do anything that I can see. And there's your pen. And the rear end of this is the piston knob, I think. And that is a vacuum filler. Yep, indeed. And it does have that shut off, but there's no two ink chambers, just the one. And very interestingly, it has a Moonman nib, which is a number 5 size. So I would have put a number 6 on that because it looks like a very large pen with a tiny pinhead.
You solved the box. We came. Now you must come with us.
I suppose what you can do is stand it up like that on your desk, or put it on this way, because that clip probably doesn't clip into your shirt. It's made as a roll stop. We saw that in a previous Majohn. Very interesting that you'd have such a large cap. It is back weighted. At first blush, I would have made this a lighter knob so that this tiny front end doesn't get overbalanced by this big barbell rear end. I mean, I know I like big butts, but this is ridiculous.
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
And it has a Moonman nib unit that screws in and out, which is good, so you can clean the pen out. Yeah, all rings in there. See if it's marked at all. Moonman super quality. Is that an F? To get up closer to see it. Yep, it's a tiny little F. So that is a fine nib. So this will fit all of your pens that have a Moonman number 5 size nib, which would be like the M1 as a number 5 size nib, and various other Moonman pens. Ink is going to be important here because it's going to be shown off both when you're writing and when you're storing your test tube on your desk. Something to look forward to. I'll show the parts and features of this pen, some size comparisons and measurements, and then provide a writing sample. And then I'll talk about what I like and what I don't like so much about this fountain pen. I should address my opening remarks straight away and let you in on which fountain pen this Majohn V1 is copying. It is the Lotus hide and seek. The two pens couldn't be more identical, and I find it outrageous that Moonman have yet again completely ripped off someone else's design. That is, other than the Lotus is ebonite and has a number 6 size nib, is a cartridge converter pen, not a vac filler, and has a functional clip, the two pens are indistinguishable from each other. That's outrageous. And the Moonman is a full $100 less expensive than the Lotus, so cheap copy. Let's take a good look at this cheap imitation. Overall, the pen is, well, just plain weird. There's no functional reason for the cap being the length of the pen. The closest reason for it is what Doodlebud discovered by using it as a half a shot glass. The acrylic is the usual top quality clear acrylic resin we've come to expect from Majohn. From the top we see a flat clear acrylic finial, and that big chunk of clear acrylic is screwed down into the cap and holds the ridiculous teardrop gold metal cliplet in place. This isn't a clip, I'm calling it a cliplet. It is at most a roll stop. The rest of the cap is a straight clear tube to the piston knob, which is in a matte gold colored metal with knurling around it and Majohn twice in block letters. And the bottom of the piston knob is flat. The cap unscrews with, let's count them together, folks.
Now let's stomp 3 times. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Full rotations, which is almost as ridiculous as that tiny cliplet. And we have the rest of the pen. The cap is now useless. You almost want to put a cigar in it. Perhaps this is a presidential pen model.
Oh no, am I still here? I don't want to serve out my term naked in a tube.
The rest of the pen is a long, thinner tube that is separated from the section by a matte gold colored ring. And we go from the ridiculous to the just plain silly here. This is like a Russian nesting doll. We started with a long, thick, fat pen, and each layer deeper gets smaller and smaller. The long inner barrel is obviously thinner than the cap tube thingy, and now the section is smaller still. And the whole thing ends up in a tiny number 5 size steel nib. Fat metal barbell on one end and dinky little fine nib on the other. The nib and feed are part of a nib assembly that unscrews and is identical to the unit that you find on the Moonman M1. This is usually the part of the review where I talk about how the cap seals the nib from evaporation. Well, this one doesn't. It's a good thing the ink chamber here holds 2.3 milliliters of ink, because it will evaporate really quickly inside this huge air chamber of a cap. They could have milled a ledge into the inside of this test tube that meets up with the top of the section, but they didn't. That would be a large ledge indeed, because the section is so small. If they put a number 6 size nib in there, they could have made a ledge.
That's no bolt, it's a ledge.
That would have required some thought though, something sorely missing in the design of this oddball. It's not like it would be unknown to them, as they made a pen just recently in this C4 that has the exact same ledge and number 6 size nib. I bought this pen from Penn's World Store on AliExpress for $26.49. I did a full assembly of this pen, and let's look at that video right now. So one of the first things we always want to do with a new model of fountain pen is to take it to pieces. So we take the enormous cap off. There's nothing to take off there, except perhaps maybe that top finial, but it's probably screwed in there pretty tight, and there's no reason to do that. So the section comes off. And one thing to beware of is that little matte gold colored ring comes right off of there, so don't lose that. And then the nib unit will unscrew as well. So there are some pieces, and then we look at the vac unit, unscrew it, pull it out, and there are some flats on the sides of those threads. The wrench on it, and turn the barrel. Don't turn your wrench. Always use your hand rather than the wrench to torque these things, otherwise you could break plastic parts. There, now it's loose, and that unit comes out. And boy, that looks familiar, doesn't it? I bet you that's the identical piece to Asvine, Pen BBS, Narwhal. All of those are the exact same vacuum filling hardware. So they're all manufactured in China. And there's our clear barrel. And for maintenance, you put a little silicone grease on that and on the piston and get that working inside the barrel nicely. Grease on those silicone O-rings right there. Just helps it seal. And get that piston gasket covered in some grease. We can put that back in. It lubricates the inside of that barrel. Put that on hand tight again. Put your wrench on the flats and turn the barrel to tighten it, not the wrench, and only tighten it as far as hand tight. There's that nice popping sound we like to hear with the vacuum fillers. Now, inquiring minds want to know how much capacity will this pen take. And then I'm going to drop a little silicone grease on here as well. That'll make sure that section is nicely sealed against any leaks. There we go. And we put the nib unit back in and just hand tight. There we go. First thing I'll do is measure the weight of this, then fill it up with some water and measure the weight again, and we'll discover what the ink capacity of this vac filler is. So the whole pen together is 36.6 grams. Let's fill it with water, and here it is full of water, and it's 38.9. So that's 2.3 milliliters of ink that this pen can hold, and that's an absolutely full fill. Now let's look at some size comparisons. And here is the Majohn V1 with a Majohn C4 Japanese eyedropper, a Moonman C1 eyedropper, a Moonman M1 eyedropper, and a Pen BBS 492 Year of the Rat. And this is a magnetic piston filler. Now let's look at them posted. And here they are posted. I know that's kind of ridiculous because only one of them actually posts in any usable form at all. And that's the Moonman M1. And this is the size of pen where a number 5 size nib is appropriate. The Pen BBS 492 is a magnetic filler that works by taking the magnet in the cap and running it up and down the barrel on the outside to move the magnet on the inside, which has a piston attached to it. It's gimmicky and not very functional at all. Now let's look at them unposted. There, that was easy. Here they are unposted. And you see the same stupid little blob on the clip of the C4 as well. Now let's look at some measurements, and I'll be back with a writing sample. And we're back with the writing portion of the review. This is Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper, and this is the Majohn V1, and it has a number 5 size steel fine nib. Let's check the wetness. It's decently wet for a fine nib, and this nib is really very smooth. I was surprised. Usually Moonman Majohn fine number 5 size nibs feel a bit scratchy to me. This one has some feedback, some good feedback, but is very smooth in all directions. So it's a fine writer, pardon the pun, right out of the box. And the ink today is J. Urbain Emerald of Chivor. This is a very popular ink that has a terrific red sheen and gold shimmer. And as to some line variation, well, there's not much to be had. It's a fairly stiff nib, as to be expected. And this pen makes a 0.4 millimeter line, which makes it a Western extra fine or a Japanese fine on my Richard Binder line width chart, which you can find linked in the description below. And for our quote. And for some reverse writing, this is just as smooth as it is right side up. A lot thinner and a lot drier. Skipping a little bit, but not scratchy. And some quick writing. Yeah, that feed has no difficulty keeping up. So what do I like and what do I not like about this fountain pen? Well, there's not a lot to like about this fountain pen. It's well made, typical of Majohn, but the design choices here infuriate me. Not because they copied the Lotus. Perhaps the overall concept of the cap covering the entire pen was copied, but the design after that is just ridiculous. I suppose it infuriates me because they have so much good stuff going for them. They have a great vacuum filling design, which is the same as the Narwhal, the Twisby, and the Asvine. They have great clear acrylic, and they have some previous designs which have evolved from the M1 up through the C1 and the C4, of course, among others. And they end up with this. They could have taken the C1, made it as wide as the cap of the V1, and then threaded it onto the barrel, cut this cap down to here, and threaded it onto the barrel just like on the C1, and put a ledge inside the cap, just like on the C4. But clear acrylic, nice big number 6 size Moonman nib that I could pull out and replace with a Kaigaloo long blade Architect. And it would be a vacuum filler, almost the same capacity as this V1, perhaps maybe 2.0 milliliters. And a big chunk of this clear acrylic right here instead of that metal for the piston knob. And give us a real clip, people. Jeez, like this one on the Pen BBS. One that works. If you're going to give us a clip, don't give us this little pimple. Give us a clip that works. And if you don't want to break up the clear lines, like here on the C1, just put the flat side that acts as a roll stop like you did on the C1. But they missed that opportunity and made this, which is no more than a conversation piece. What surprises me is it's actually very comfortable in the hand when writing. But I can't overlook all of the bad decisions here. Let's list them. 1. The nib is too small. It looks ridiculous. It's a pinhead. Number 2, the long cap is useless and ridiculous. Number 3, there's no cap seal at all. Number 4, the clip is stupid.
Don't call me stupid.
Why on earth not?
Number 5, the section is small. Big pen, tiny little section and nib.
Phenomenal cosmic powers!
And it takes 3 full rotations to get the test tube off. Perhaps the designers were using the prototype caps as shot glasses and lost any semblance of common sense because there's precious little common sense here. Maybe I should try it as a shot glass for my Canadian Club whiskey. Let's get my whiskey out here. Pour out some, and let's siphon up some whiskey. There we go, almost to the brim. Doodlebud says that's a half a shot. I think his shots are big. Now let's see.
Here's the first of the day, fellas, to old D.H. Lawrence. Indians.
Ooh. I know some purists out there don't consider rye a whiskey. To those people I say, shut up. That's good. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can also loins as a member of my flannel for only 99 plence a month. And I also totally mention your privates in the section where you'll get more smoogles and boggers and sleek deeks in boxers as well. And that just leaves me saying you watching She Wrote. Thank you.
this.
I'm all right. I'm all